The Construction Leadership Council Health, Safety and Wellbeing Summit. Today I'm in the beautiful building Institute of Directors Pall Mall in central London. Where do I start? What's my honest opinion? Not very impressed. There was a very strong panel. There's very strong various speakers, which I'll go through in a minute. But there's no leadership. It's the CLC, it's the Construction Leadership Council. The fact that at the moment they're sitting around doing a kind of an in competition, asking everyone their thoughts on how we move it forward. As a leadership group, surely you know what to do. You lead, you take the initiative, you drive it forward and get industry support and follow. Not go, look, we don't know what we're doing, we're going to farm this out and do a fancy colouring-in competition, which they're doing at the moment. So, these were the speakers in no particular order, and my honest opinions on what they said and what they thought. So there's a video at the beginning speaking to various workers, mainly Tier 1, Tier 2s, boots on the ground, which I thought was very good. Their opinions were simple things like more mental health, which is obvious, but it was good to hear it. Again, things like running water, toilets that work. You know, we're going to be in a Western country here, but you wouldn't have thought so at times. More planning, maintenance of plant and tools, etc., and better communication. So we then went into Mark Reynolds, CEO of Mace, and the CLC. He spoke, and bearing in mind this is health, wellbeing and mental health. What I've done on each speaker is look at the percentage of their time they spoke about mental health. So Mark, opening speech was about 10% of his time talking about mental health. Most important aspect to construction, he said, the people. Of course it is. Saying how aviation is much safer than construction. I have a good friend who runs airlines for a living, so I might get him on the show and talk to him about the comparisons. Change can only come from leadership. An interesting quote from Mark. And then there's a new health and safety strategy being announced today. Not quite sure what that is, haven't heard anything yet. It says here as well that we are leading from the front, but in reality, is every single leader actually in touch with the boots on the ground, the reality of what's going on in the industry? Obviously, they're very high up, they're very busy, they're very successful, but do they really know what's happening on the ground? Sarah Jones, the Minister for Construction, came on, barely mentioned mental health, 5%. Of her time, how construction is so important as an industry to government. One comment, 20,000 out of 40,000 musculoskeletal sick is in construction. I think we knew that. Not mentioning mental health yet either. Keep banging on this 2 a day figures. Can we please get that right? It's a lack of respect to people that have lost somebody or tried to take their own life. It's not 2 a day. Let's get the figures right and work from the same number. Tier 1, CLC, Warwick University, Mental Health and Construction Group, all working together, joint code of practice. February 2026 it's being released. Again, no idea what that's all about. It seems to be honest, like a typical MP. She was just talking the talk. None of it really made any sense. There was no definitive drive forward. What we're doing as an industry, it was very much buzzwords and non-committal answers, let's say. Leo Quinn, Balfour Beatty, lowest, 1% of his time on mental health, if that. All he banged on about was how great Balfour Beatty are, how much they've done, how far they've come. We're talking about the industry, 3.2 million people in construction and home improvement here in the UK, and all he did was mention Balfour Beatty. Yes, there's some learnings, but there's more to it than just Balfour Beatty. Kept banging on about Elon Musk as well, and flying geese. Anyway, enough said that. On we go. Sarah Newton, HSE, same as previous, 1% on mental health. Keeps going on about how construction is such an important industry to the HSE. All I picked up from her was buzzwords, expressions which you hear from HSE and government. Anything of any note, any purpose? Not what I picked up, sorry, but I thought that was a complete waste of her 10 minutes on stage. Nothing was really said of any note. There was then the panel. Katie Dowding from Skanska chaired a panel with David Buxley, Rick Brunt and Sarah Jones. It was called a fireside chat, which I don't think is the right wording, bearing in mind the recent Netflix documentary from Grenfell, which is out, and a lot of reports written on, obviously, that horrendous accident years ago. Maybe could have called it something else. The words that keep being banged on about: leadership, policy, collaboration. Sarah Jones, she was asked about mental health. Partnerships from Tier 1 government support this. So we are going to lead it as an industry. Okay, What are government going to do to support it? You say you're supporting it, but what are you actually going to do? You're going to put in legislation? Are you going to put in a code of practice? Are you going to put in certain things that have to be legally in contracts, prelims? What are you doing to support it? Sounds great. And then David Buxley pretty much took over for what seemed like an eternity. We're doing great work around mental health. Said that a lot. Okay, that's great. But why are suicide numbers going up, which he then alluded to later on? And they are going up and up and up and up. Keeps going on about fire safety as well. I didn't really understand. This is mental health. This is a very different animal, as everybody knows, because I've been very open about it. 6 years ago, I survived a suicide attempt. This is why I'm so passionate about bringing about positive change in construction around mental health and the workforce. There's a lot of flannel being spoken here. I'm sorry, but leaders need to lead from the front. They need experience in this sector. They need to understand what's really going on. The other thing, which you saw from a post on LinkedIn, a photograph, it was very white male, wasn't it? 2025. Diversity barely existed in the room today. So, other things just to wrap up with. Identifying causes of mental health, David said. At Warwick University they're working with. Let's get straight on this. I've also been working, and I'm still working, with Warwick University. Fantastic group, very experienced researchers and doctors and psychologists. They got given $15,000 from the Crown Estate to carry out their research. They spoke to about 70 or 80 people, I haven't got the figure in front of me, which all told us what we know. Mental health is shot. Bosses put us under undue stress. We're working away from home. We eat crap, we drink, we've got addictions, van and tool theft, excess pressure, not getting paid, you name it. Great research, it proved what we all know. But when you say you're working with a university, why have none of the tier 1 or tier 2s actually put their hand in their pocket to support any of this research? As we speak, Carla Torre from Warwick University has put a submission in for a grant of 1.98 million for a 3-year project to really go into detail of research around mental health in construction. We're worth nearly 200 billion, that's a fifth of a trillion. Nobody can put their hand in their pocket and raise some money so Carla and her team can do the research that everybody's crying out for. I find that very sad, but we sit in this wonderful building in central London today, which wouldn't have been cheap. So, another thing David said was the launch of industry-wide 6 weeks consultation, finishing on the August the 4th. This seems to me, because he was pretty much begging for volunteers to help and share this consultation and help the CLC, I get frustrated with this because, to me, CLC, Construction Leadership Council, they're now begging the industry to share all this information and get everything out and across to industry. However, we know what's going on. There's a few of us in that room today, and I mean a few of us, that understand everything about it. We've been bleating on about it for years, over a decade, but we're not being listened to. So when they do this research, who's it going to be done with? This collaboration, this consultation, is it going to be subbies, agency staff? Is it going to be tier 1 contractors, tier 2, little one-man band painter and decorators? Who is it going to be? Is it going to be British? Is it going to be foreign nationals? What diversity is going to be included? Men, women, all different race, colour, creeds. I'm sorry, this 6-week consultation won't really tell us anything. A, we don't already know. And B, after that, what is going to be put in place? Apparently a joint code of practice. What does that actually mean? How is it going to be enforced? How are people going to be accountable if one of their workers takes their own life because of stress in the workplace and undue pressures from their boss? That would be interesting to see. And one other thing, Sarah Jones' industrial strategy coming out, or is out. Again, comms, communication, people. No one knows about this. So finally, the last speaker was a guy, my apologies, one other thing, back to, David Buxley's comment, other things at work take priority over mental health. I fell over my words there because, bearing in mind what we're here for, hearing that from him wasn't good. Going on about mental health and how important it is, now saying other things take priority. I wrote that down as he said it. Finally, Dan Labad, the Crown Estate CEO, I believe. Apologies if I got your title wrong. What a fantastic guy. What a brilliant, I could listen to him all day. Honest, open, caring, professional, experienced. He talked about how he grew up in Sydney, which is where I finished learning my trade in the 90s. I'd be interested in if we cross paths. He told about the accidents, he told about the suicides, he's seen it firsthand, he's an experienced guy. He was open and honest, said 10 years ago we were talking about this, look where we are now. We've not made any movement or progress forward, so if in another 10 years, not just me to blame, but all of us. He's open and honest. I thought he spoke an awful lot of good. Sad thing, would you recommend to your children to join construction as an industry and as a career? He said no, and I probably agree with that. Again, open, honest and frank. And the final thing, some positive news. Wales and the Southwest, huge amount of investment around renewables, which is going to increase jobs. Communities are going to benefit, so some great news to finish. And the reason I'm sitting here and not upstairs is because they've got their colouring in competition at the moment, which I mentioned earlier. Let me just read it to you. How do you bring the industry together to deliver the strategy? How about if you're in charge of leadership and you are heading this up, you know the answers. It's all very good, everyone sitting there chucking their 2 penneth in for a few people at the top to take all the glory, chuck it all over LinkedIn and hope it works. I'm sorry, but the wrong people are in the wrong position and going to make the wrong decisions. There's very few of us that know exactly what's going on the ground, day in, day out. We've tried, we have sat down with the CLC, we are no longer working with them. The good news, we may be working on something in the background. It is about time for positive change. The truth needs to come out in all facets of construction. And at the moment, all I can say is we are working on something very, very special, which is going to give this industry a kick up the arse. It's going to give it transparency, and we are going to put positive change in place around mental health in construction and the workforce. Not sure an exact launch date yet, certainly going to be this year. We've got to finalise a lot of legal stuff and T's and C's and all this sort of stuff, but it's what the industry needs. So watch this space. There's some good news coming, because it's about time we create positive change.